All right, so today's lesson is actually the opposite of what we have been doing, which is foiling. So we're taking a trinomial and we are breaking it down into two binomials. And if you remember this from last chapter, so we're taking what we learned last chapter and we're going backwards and bringing it back to a trinomial. So this first lesson is pretty, it's less complex than what we're going to be doing in the next lesson. Are we okay? Okay. So in order to figure out what our binomials are, we are going to take the third term. This is our C term. So the 1 here in front of the x that we don't see is our A term. The 9 is our B term, and the 18 is our C term. So we're going to take this last term, and we are going to find factors of 18, which is what I say up here, factors of the term C that add up to the term B. So if I write out my factors of 18, I have 2 and 9. I also have 1 and 18, and I have 3 and 6. And looking at those factors, which two factors add up to 9? 3 and 6. And so the way that you would write this would be x plus 3, x plus 6. Okay. And that is actually your final answer. Now, if you wanted to FOIL it back to see if it is correct, you could do so. So x times x is x squared. And then you have 6x and 3x, which add up to 9x, and then 3 times 6, which is 18. So you can check that mentally. Okay. So I'm going to do all of the examples on the left, and then you can do all of the practice on the right on your own. So let's go ahead and take 4. Now notice on this one that our B term is negative. So this is going to be a little bit different. We are going to have 2 negative numbers. And the reason I know this is because 2 negatives, when you multiply them together, give you a positive 4. So our factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. And we can see by looking at this that 1 and 4 are going to give us 5. So 1 times 4 is 4, but 1 plus 4 is a positive 5. How can we make this a negative 5 and still keep a positive 4? Well, we can make this a negative and this a negative. So negative 1 times negative 4 is a positive 4, and negative 1 plus a negative 4 is a negative 5. Okay, so in this case, we have both subtraction. Okay. Again, you can FOIL that back or distribute it back to see if you end up where we started. So 2 positives, you're going to have 2 positives. A negative and a positive, you're going to have 2 negatives. Okay. Now let's come down to where on examples 3 and 4, our C term is negative. What that means is that one factor has to be negative and one factor has to be positive. So let's look at this. We have negative 10, and we have 1 and 10, and we have 2 and 5. So what factors of negative 10 will give us a positive 3 or a 3 of some sort? Okay, well, I can see that 2 and 5 will if we subtract them. So now when we subtract 2 and 5, which one of these has to be negative in order to give us a positive 3? The 2. Okay, so 5 minus 2 is 3, or negative 2 plus 5 gives us a 3. So in this case, we have x minus 2, x plus 5. And the way to think about this is just like normal integer ops, is that if your B term is positive, then your larger factor has to be positive. If your B term is negative, like down here, then your larger factor must be negative. Okay. All right, let's go down to example 4. So we have a -8, and we need factors that will give us a -7. So we have 1 and 8, and 2 and 4. Well, clearly 2 and 4 doesn't. When you add them, you get 6. When you subtract them, you get 2. So it's got to be 1 and 8. And remember, I said, since we have a -8, one of these numbers must be negative. And since our B term is negative, that means our larger factor must be negative. Okay. So we end up with x plus 1, x minus 8. Okay. Now, I get this question every time. It doesn't matter if x plus 1 is first or x minus 8 is first. It does not matter. Okay. So what I'd like for you to do now is do practice 1 through 4. I'm going to pause the video, so when we come back, you will see the answers. All right, go ahead and check practice 1 and 2. And then let's see, and 3. And then here is 4. Any questions on these? Anyone need me to wait for just a minute? Okay. Okay, let's go to the back. So up at the top, it says sometimes you will need to factor out the GCF first, then factor out the rest of the trinomial. So we did practice this, or we did actually learn this in the last chapter. So we need to figure out the greatest common factor between 3, 15, and 18. And in this case, it would be 3. Okay, so let's factor out a 3. Now this time when we factor it out, you need to always keep the 3 with you, okay? Don't get rid of the 3. So once I factor out the 3, it goes on the outside of the parenthesis, and then we go ahead and divide. So 3x squared divided by 3 is x squared. 15x divided by 3 is 5x. And 18 divided by 3 is 6. And then once we do this, we just factor it like we did the front page. So we take factors of 6 that give us a 5. Okay. And it's going to be 2 and 3. So when we write this out, we put the 3 on the outside, we keep that 3, and then we have x plus 2, x plus 3. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do example 6. And our GCF is 2x this time. So we have to factor out a variable. So when we do that, we get x squared plus 2x minus 6. Now notice that our 6 is negative. That means that our factors have to be one positive, one negative. So we have -6, and we have 1 and 6, 2 and 3. Okay. Are there any factors that give us a 2? No. Okay. So in this case, this is our final answer. They would consider this trinomial right here prime. Okay. So part of your answer would be that it's prime. This is as far as you can go. Okay. All right, let's do example 7. We're going to factor out the GCF of 2. And when we do that, we get x squared plus 3x plus 4. Okay, so we have to find factors of 4 that give us a 3. Oh, I don't think I meant to do this more than once. Okay, so do we have any factors that give us a +4 and a +3? No, we don't. So this is our answer again. Okay. What I would like for you to do is go ahead and do the last four on your own, and then we will come back and check these. So I'm going to pause the video, and when we come back, you will see the answers on the screen. Okay, so here's practice 5, 6, and 7. Any questions on those? Okay, and then here is example 8. That one is also prime. So this would have had to been a 9 or a -9 in order for this to work. Okay, so that concludes lesson 7.2 on factoring a trinomial when A is 1.